Sometimes, the world presents us with stories so profound, so unexplainable, that it forces us to question everything we think we know about reality. This is one of those stories. It's a tale of a man who trusted only in science, whose world was shattered and then rebuilt by miracle. Before we dive into this incredible journey, please drop a comment letting us know what city you're watching from. I truly want to see how far the power of these stories is reaching. The crisp autumn air of the Blue Ridge Mountains was Dr. Ethan Hayes' sanctuary. It was a place of logic, of predictable patterns, of geological certainties he could map and understand. As a renowned botanist, the forest wasn't a place of mystery to him. It was a complex but solvable equation. Its flora followed rules of sunlight and soil, its fauna the instincts of survival. There were no ghosts in the machine, no magic in the moss. There was only biology, chemistry, and physics, a beautiful, intricate dance of the observable world. He was a man who found comfort in facts, in evidence that could be measured and verified. His faith was placed not in the unseen, but in the peer-reviewed and the empirically proven. This rational worldview had served him well in his career, but it carved a quiet canyon between him and his wife, Sarah, whose faith was as deep and unwavering as his was absent. The greatest paradox of Ethan's life was that this man, who lived by the cold, hard light of reason, loved nothing more in the universe than the one being who embodied pure, unexplainable magic. His 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily was a creature of wonder. She saw faces in the gnarled bark of oak trees and heard whispers in the wind. For her, the forest was not an equation to be solved, but a kingdom to be explored, filled with fairies and talking animals. Ethan cherished this about her, even as he gently tried to explain the science behind the iridescence of a butterfly's wing or the photosynthetic process that turns sunlight into life. On that particular Saturday in October, the three of them were having a picnic in a familiar clearing in Blackwood Creek National Park. The sun dappled through a canopy of brilliant orange and red leaves, and the air smelled of damp earth and decaying leaves, the scent of a world preparing for slumber. Sarah was laying out a checkered blanket, while Ethan helped Lily identify different types of ferns. "This one is a Christmas fern," he explained, tracing its leathery leaves. "See how the little leaflets look like tiny stockings?" Lily giggled, her eyes wide with delight. "For the fairy Santa Claus?" she asked. Ethan smiled, a warmth spreading through his chest that had nothing to do with scientific analysis. "Something like that, sweetie." The moment that would redefine his entire existence was, like most life-altering moments, deceptively simple. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a colleague from the university with a question about a grant proposal. An urgent, but ultimately trivial matter. "I'll be right back," he told Sarah, stepping a few yards away to get better reception. He turned his back on the clearing, on his daughter, on the perfect Saturday afternoon. The call lasted no more than 5 minutes. He spoke in jargon, discussing funding streams and research parameters, his mind fully engaged in a world of logic and reason he so comfortably inhabited. When he hung up and turned around, the world had changed. Sarah was looking at him, a questioning expression on her face. "Where's Lily?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with the first thread of unease. "I thought she was with you." Ethan's heart gave a single, hard thump against his ribs. She was right here. He scanned the clearing. The picnic blanket was there, the half-eaten sandwiches, Lily's worn teddy bear, Barnaby. But Lily was gone. Panic is a cold fire. It starts in the gut and spreads to the veins, freezing rational thought. "Lily!" he called out, his voice unnaturally loud in the quiet woods. "Lily, honey, this isn't funny. Come on out." Only the rustle of leaves answered. Sarah's face had gone pale, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. They both started calling her name, their voices growing more frantic, more strained. They circled the clearing, pushing through the underbrush, their calls echoing to the silent, indifferent trees. The sun, what had been so warm and friendly moments before, now seemed to cast long, sinister shadows. Every rustle of a squirrel, every snap of a twig, sent a jolt of false hope through Ethan's system. He was a scientist. He knew this forest. She couldn't have gone far. A child her age would stick to the path. She would hear them calling. But the forest remained silent. After 20 minutes of desperate searching, a timeline that felt like an eternity, The terrifying truth settled upon them. She was truly gone. The 911 call was a blur of choked words and barely suppressed hysteria. He gave their coordinates, his voice betraying the scientific detachment he prided himself on. He was just a father, terrified and helpless. Within the hour, the clearing was no longer a place of family picnics but a command post. Park rangers, sheriff's deputies, and a volunteer search and rescue team swarmed the area. The air filled with the crackle of radios and the clipped, professional voices of people trained for chaos. Ethan and Sarah were led back to their car, wrapped in scratchy blankets that did nothing to warm the ice in their bones. He tried to be useful, pointing out on a map the trails they frequented, describing what Lily was wearing, a bright pink jacket, a detail he now clung to as a beacon of hope. He could hear the search dogs barking in the distance, a sound that was both reassuring and terrifying. Sarah was praying, her lips moving silently, her eyes closed. Ethan watched her, a familiar pang of frustration mixed with a new, desperate envy. He had no one to pray to. He could only trust in the methodology of the search, in the grid patterns, the thermal cameras, the human effort. The first night was the longest of his life. A cold front moved in and a steady, miserable drizzle began to fall. The temperature dropped. Ethan sat in the back of a police cruiser, a styrofoam cup of coffee growing cold in his hands, staring out at the dark, rain-slicked trees. Every scientific fact he knew screamed at him. He knew about hypothermia. He knew the survival rates for a small child lost in the wilderness, how they plummeted with every passing hour, every drop in temperature. His logical mind became a torture chamber, replaying statistics and worst-case scenarios. Sarah had been taken to a nearby ranger station, but he had refused to leave. He had to be there. He felt that if he left, he would be abandoning his daughter. Sometime after midnight, the sheriff, a man named Brody, with a weary face and kind eyes, sat in the passenger seat. "We're doing everything we can, Dr. Hayes," he said softly. "These guys are the best." Ethan just nodded, unable to speak. "You should try to get some rest." Rest was an impossibility. Sleep was a betrayal. His daughter was out there, cold and alone, and all he could do was sit and wait while strangers searched for her. His guilt was a physical weight, pressing down on his chest, making it hard to breathe. The 5-minute phone call. He had turned his back for 5 minutes. Day 2 dawned gray and bleak. The search expanded. A helicopter chopped the air overhead, its sound a constant, throbbing reminder of their failure. News vans had arrived, their satellite dishes pointed at the sky like metallic vultures. He and Sarah were now the subjects of a local news story, their grief-stricken faces broadcast for all to see. Well-meaning volunteers offered them food and coffee, their faces a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. The questions from law enforcement became more pointed, more personal. Were there any problems at home? Anyone who might want to harm their family? Ethan understood the necessity of it. But each question felt like an accusation, another layer of salt rubbed into a gaping wound. He and Sarah had a tense, whispered argument. "We need to pray, Ethan," she pleaded, her voice raw with tears. "We need to have faith." "Faith in what, Sarah?" He snapped back, his own voice harsh with exhaustion and despair. "Faith in a God who lets a 6-year-old girl wander off into a forest to freeze to death? I'm putting my faith in the men with the dogs and the GPS trackers." The words were cruel, and he knew at the moment they left his mouth. He saw the hurt in her eyes, another failure to add to his growing list. He walked away, unable to face her, and stared back into the woods, which now felt like a living entity, a monstrous beast that had swallowed his daughter whole. He joined one of the search parties, against the advice of Sheriff Brody. He needed to do something, anything other than wait. He pushed through thorny bushes, his clothes tearing, his skin scratching. He called Lily's name until his throat was raw, the sound swallowed by the vastness of the trees. He analyzed the ground, looking for a footprint, a scrap of pink cloth, using the skills that had defined his life. But the forest floor was a chaotic tapestry of fallen leaves, and the rain had washed away any potential tracks. His expertise was useless. The forest, his sanctuary of logic, was now mocking him with an impenetrable randomness. He was no longer a scientist. He was just a man, stripped of all his certainties, lost in a world that no longer made sense. By the end of the second day, a sense of grim reality began to settle over the search teams. The conversations became quieter, the glances more sympathetic. They spoke of recovery instead of rescue. Hope, once a roaring fire, was now a flickering ember, and Ethan could feel the cold dread of its final extinguishment. That night, he couldn't bear the command post. He walked to the edge of the search perimeter, standing where the yellow police tape met the darkness. The rain had stopped, but the air was heavy and cold. The stars were hidden behind a thick blanket of clouds. He was utterly, completely alone. His scientific mind had offered him nothing but statistics of death. His own strength had failed him. His guilt was an ocean threatening to drown him. He looked up into black, featureless sky, and for the first time since he was a small boy, he felt an impulse he couldn't explain. He didn't form words. He didn't address a specific deity. He just let go. A single, silent plea emanated from the deepest, most broken part of his soul. A raw, primal cry for help directed at whatever might be listening in the vast, silent emptiness of the universe. Please. It was not a prayer of faith, but a prayer of absolute surrender. A final, desperate admission that he had no answers, no control, and no hope left. He stood there for a long time, the cold seeping into his bones. Nothing happened. The wind sighed through pines. A distant owl hooted. Defeated. He turned to walk back when a flicker of movement near the ground caught his eye. It was a single large butterfly, its wings a startling, vibrant blue. It was a common morpho. Ethan's mind, a creature of habit, immediately began to process the data. Morphopleiades, native to Central and South America. Its presence here in the Blue Ridge Mountains in the cold of late October was a biological impossibility. It should have been dead. Yet here it was, fluttering weakly but defiantly. It flew a few feet and landed on the trunk of a pine tree, its blue wings a flash of impossible color in the gloom. Ethan stared mesmerized. It was an anomaly, a break in a pattern, a piece that didn't fit the puzzle. Without thinking, he stepped over the police tape and followed it. The butterfly led him on a strange, meandering path, deeper into the woods, away from the organized search grids. It would fly a short distance, land, and wait for him to catch up, its blue wings like tiny, pulsing lanterns in the darkness. His rational mind screamed that he was exhausted, that he was hallucinating, that he should turn back. But the desperate, broken part of him, the part that had sent a plea into the void, kept walking. After about 15 minutes, the butterfly fluttered into a small, dense thicket of rhododendron bushes that the search teams had likely passed by, assuming it was impenetrable. As the butterfly disappeared into the leaves, Ethan heard something. It was faint, almost imperceptible. A soft, humming sound. A children's lullaby. His heart hammered against his ribs. He tore at the branches, ignoring the scratches on his face and hands. He pushed his way through and stumbled into a small, hidden clearing. And there, nestled at the base of a massive, ancient oak tree, was Lily. She was not crying. She was not shivering. She was sitting up, her pink jacket zipped to her chin, her teddy bear, Barnaby, clutched in her arms. She was humming the very tune he had just heard. Her cheeks were pink, her eyes clear. She looked as if she had just woken from a peaceful nap. For a moment, Ethan's brain couldn't process the scene. It defied every law of biology and survival he knew. She should have been suffering from severe hypothermia. At the very least, she should have been terrified. He fell to his knees in front of her, tears streaming down his face, and pulled her into his arms. He held her so tightly he was afraid he might break her, burying his face in her hair, inhaling the scent of his own child, alive and warm and real. "Lily," he sobbed, the word a ragged, broken thing. "Oh, Lily, I found you." She pulled back slightly and looked at him, her expression not one of fear or trauma, but of simple, serene confusion. "You didn't find me, Daddy," she said, her voice clear as a bell. "The pretty lady was keeping me safe." Ethan's blood ran cold. He quickly scanned the clearing. It was empty. "What lady, sweetie? Was there someone with you?" Lily nodded, pointing to the empty space beside the tree. She was here. She had a long dress the color of the sky. And her face was so kind, like Mommy's when she sings to me. Ethan's breath hitched. He ran a hand over her forehead. She wasn't feverish. What did she do, honey? Did she give you food? No, Lily said, shaking her head. She just stayed with me. She hummed songs and kept me warm. She told me not to be scared, that my daddy was coming. A profound, unexplainable awe washed over Ethan, displacing the fear. He looked at his daughter, who had spent nearly 48 hours in a cold, hostile forest, yet was completely unharmed. She wasn't dehydrated. She wasn't hungry. She was just, okay. He looked at the spot where the impossible blue butterfly had vanished. He thought of his prayer of surrender, the desperate plea sent to no one in particular. He didn't know what to believe, but he knew what he was seeing. He was witnessing a miracle. He scooped her into his arms and carried her out of the woods, his shouts for help echoing through the trees. The moment the other searchers saw them, a wave of shock and elation rippled through the teams. The reunion with Sarah was a storm of tears and grateful cries. In the hospital, doctors examined Lily, their faces etched with professional disbelief. They ran every test. They found no signs of exposure, no dehydration, no frostbite. Her core body temperature was normal. Medically, it made no sense. It's remarkable, the lead doctor told Ethan and Sarah, shaking his head. I've been doing this for 30 years. I have never seen anything like it. It's as if she spent the last 2 days in a warm room. Reporters clamored for a statement, but all Ethan could do was hold his wife's hand and his daughter's. Lily told her story again, to her mother, to Sheriff Brody, to the doctors. Her account never wavered. A beautiful lady in blue had found her when she was scared. She had a soft, glowing light around her, and she had stayed with her, keeping the cold and the scary noises away. She said the lady had just left, right before her daddy arrived. The story spread like wildfire through the small town and beyond. Some called it a child's fantasy, a coping mechanism for trauma. Others, like Sarah, accepted it with quiet, knowing faith. For them, it was a clear case of divine intervention, a guardian angel or something more, robed in the traditional blue of the Virgin Mary. Ethan never tried to explain it. He couldn't. His world of facts and figures had no framework for a little girl surviving 2 freezing nights without food, water, or shelter, protected by a mysterious, benevolent stranger. He had no explanation for the impossible blue butterfly that had led him right to her. Life, for the Hayes family, was never the same. The canyon between Ethan and Sarah closed, bridged by a shared experience that was too sacred for words. He never became a devoutly religious man, but his rigid skepticism had been shattered, replaced by a profound humility and a newfound openness to the mysteries of the universe. He still loved science, but he now understood that the things we can measure are only a tiny fraction of the things that are real. He learned to listen more, not just his daughter's fantastical stories, but to the whispers of the world that lie beyond human understanding. He learned that the most powerful forces in the universe, love, hope, and faith, could not be quantified or peer-reviewed, but their effects were undeniable. The forest, once a place of cold logic, became a place of reverence for him, a reminder the day his daughter was lost and found, and the day he learned that even for a man of science, some things are meant to be believed, not understood. This incredible story has just ended, but another one is beginning right now on your screen. Click here to continue the journey and discover another tale that will touch your soul.